All right, buckle up, everybody. We're diving headfirst into the wild world of cybersecurity this week.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, it is, especially with the headlines we've got. We're talking everything from hospital hacks to apps that are maybe a little too addictive. And you know what?
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It all matters to you, especially if you're running a business, which I know a lot of you are.
Cybersecurity for businesses, that's crucial these days.
Absolutely. And get this, did you know New York's cracking down on cybersecurity in hospitals?
Really? What are they doing?
They're bringing in new regulations and even giving them millions of dollars to improve their security.
Wow, that's a big commitment. Good for them.
Right. And then we've got this UN cybercrime treaty that's making waves. Some folks are saying it could make TikTok's data issues look like small potatoes.
That sounds concerning. We'll have to dig into that.
Oh, we will. And to top it all off, we've got a Microsoft bug, and guess what?
What's that? Another zero-day exploit.
You got it. No patch in sight.
Oh boy, that's never good news.
You know, keeping your systems safe is super important as businesses rely more and more on digital systems, and that's where Turnkey Cybersecurity can really help.
Yeah, we're here to help small businesses just like yours make sure they're safe and sound in this crazy world of cybersecurity. And we offer a whole suite of services specifically tailored for you. So that's ensuring CMMC compliance and doing penetration testing. We also run vulnerability scans, and we can help you develop a comprehensive risk assessment.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We handle incident response, should the unfortunate happen, and we guide you through migrations like GCC. We just want to make sure your transitions are smooth and that you're secure.
It's all about peace of mind, right? You focus on what you do best, running your business, and we'll make sure that your digital world is safe and sound. So are you ready to unpack all of this?
Ready when you are.
All right, let's get started. Where do you want to begin?
Let's start with that Microsoft bug. This time it's hitting the Microsoft Management Console, or MMC for short.
MMC, yeah, that's a pretty core component of Windows.
It is, and this is the 23rd time this year that a bug's been exploited with no patch.
23? That's a lot.
It is. So why is this such a big deal? What kind of impact could it have, on businesses and everyday folks?
Well, you see, system administrators use MMC to manage Windows servers and networks.
Right, so it's pretty important stuff.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool, and in the wrong hands, this vulnerability could give attackers complete control. We're not just talking theoretical here. This is happening right now. Attackers are already exploiting this.
So what can our listeners do to protect themselves, especially while we're waiting for Microsoft to roll out a patch? What are the immediate steps?
The most important thing is to disable MMC if you're not absolutely using it.
Okay, good advice.
And be super careful about opening any saved console files.
We'll save console files, got it.
Those seem to be the main way attackers are getting in. This situation really highlights how crucial patching software is. But, and here's the thing, it's not always a foolproof solution.
Right, because there are always going to be other vulnerabilities.
Always.
Like that story about AT&T. Remember that one? It seemed like porch pirates were getting tipped off about phone deliveries.
Oh, yeah, the AT&T case. Likely an inside job.
Probably. Someone with inside knowledge.
Exactly, and this brings up a point that's often overlooked. Insider threats.
Yeah.
They can be just as damaging as external attacks.
Makes you think, right?
Definitely. Think about your own business. Are there any weak points where someone with inside knowledge could exploit you?
Yeah, interesting question. We should all be thinking about that. Delivery procedures, employee access, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Those are all areas to scrutinize.
Okay, let's move on to another story. This one really ups the ante. Star Health, it's an insurance company in India. They got hacked a couple of months ago. They denied it at first, but now data has surfaced on the dark web.
Oh, wow. So they couldn't keep it under wraps?
Nope. And here's where it gets really interesting. The hacker who stole the data is claiming that Star Health's management was in on the whole thing.
You're kidding. Like an inside job on a whole other level.
Exactly. The hacker's alleging that management offered ongoing backdoor access for a big payday.
If that's true, it's a bombshell. It wouldn't just be a data breach. It would be deliberate security compromise.
And a massive betrayal of customer trust.
Absolutely. The fallout could be immense. Think about the lawsuits, the regulatory fines, the reputational damage. It could be crippling for a company like Star Health.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It really is. And it raises so many questions about corporate responsibility and the ethics of cybersecurity.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what would you do if you were running that company?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Do you pay the ransom and risk encouraging further attacks? Or do you try to negotiate, knowing you might be dealing with criminals who might not keep their word?
And what about the legal and ethical implications of paying a ransom? It's a tangled web.
It really is. No easy answers. But these are the kinds of dilemmas businesses are facing more and more in this digital age.
Let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture of cyber insurance. We came across some data from Coalition Insurance that's pretty revealing.
Cyber insurance, that's a hot topic these days. What did the data show?
Claims are actually down, which you might think is good news.
Yeah, you think so, right?
But the size of the payouts is up 14%.
So fewer claims, but they're costing more. That's interesting.
And get this, 40% of Coalition's clients ended up paying a ransom.
Wow, 40%. That's a significant number. What do you think that tells us about the state of cybercrime?
I think it shows that while attacks might be happening less frequently, they're becoming far more sophisticated and causing a lot more damage.
That makes sense. It's not just about recovering stolen data anymore. It's about business interruption, legal fees, reputational damage. The costs are multiplying.
It's like attackers are upping their game, becoming more strategic and targeted.
Right, they're going after bigger targets and causing more disruption.
It seems like technology is evolving on both sides of this battle, both offensively and defensively. We even saw this story about AI being used in job applications.
AI in job applications. That's a new one. Tell me more.
There's this program called Auto Jobs Applier AI Hawk, and it's automating the entire application process. Some folks are even letting it run 24/7, applying for jobs nonstop.
Wow, that's amazing and a little scary at the same time. But I can see how it could be a game changer, especially in a competitive job market.
Right, and it highlights how technology is changing the way we work, even in unexpected areas.
Definitely. And that same drive for automation is happening in cybersecurity, both on the offensive and defensive sides.
So how are attackers using AI?
For everything. They're using AI to find vulnerabilities, to craft phishing emails that are so clever they can bypass traditional filters, and even to adapt their attacks in real time based on the defenses they encounter.
So it's like an AI arms race. Getting pretty intense, isn't it?
It is. It's a cat and mouse game with both sides constantly trying to outsmart the other.
So how are businesses supposed to navigate this complex landscape and keep themselves safe? It all sounds pretty overwhelming.
Well, that's where companies like Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions come in. They understand that all of this can feel daunting, so they offer a whole suite of services that are tailored to each business's unique needs.
I've heard great things about Turnkey. Can you tell us a little more about what they do?
Well, I might be a little biased here, but I think Turnkey does an amazing job. They handle everything from making sure you're complying with regulations like NYDFS 500 and PCI to penetration testing, vulnerability scans, and incident response.
Incident response, that's dealing with those network intrusions and denial of service attacks, right?
Exactly. They handle all of that and more. They even manage migration programs like GCC, which a lot of businesses are struggling with these days. They really take a holistic approach, working with you to figure out your needs and create a custom cybersecurity plan.
So they're like a one-stop shop for all things cybersecurity.
Pretty much. They take the complexity out of it so you can focus on what you do best, running your business.
That's a huge relief for businesses that don't have their own dedicated cybersecurity team.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of our listeners probably fall into that category. So it's good to know that there are resources out there like Turnkey that can help them step up their security game.
It sounds like a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Now let's get back to those headlines. This next one's about New York getting serious about hospital security with some new regulations.
Hospitals, yeah, they're prime targets for cybercriminals these days. What kind of regulations are we talking about?
Well, they're requiring hospitals to have a designated Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO for short. And they have to conduct regular risk assessments, implement a strong cybersecurity program, and have a detailed incident response plan in place.
Those are all good steps. It sounds like New York is really taking this seriously.
They are. What's interesting is that they're using their financial services regulations as a model for these new rules. It shows how seriously they're taking cybersecurity across all sectors.
That makes sense. The financial industry has been dealing with cybersecurity threats for a long time, so they've had to develop some pretty robust security measures. It's smart to leverage that experience in other industries.
Right, and they're not just imposing these rules, they're actually putting money behind it. They've approved $500 million to help hospitals comply with these new regulations.
Wow, $500 million. That's a significant investment.
It is, and it shows they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to see that kind of commitment from policymakers.
Speaking of data protection, this next story raises some really big questions. You ready for this one?
Hit me with it.
13 state attorneys general are suing TikTok.
TikTok, huh? What are they suing them for?
They're claiming that the platform is addictive and harmful to children. They're saying it promotes excessive and compulsive use.
That's a pretty serious accusation.
It is. And they're not just targeting TikTok. They're also raising concerns about the broader issue of the addictive nature of social media in general.
That's a big can of worms. Where do you even begin to address that?
I know, right? It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely. How much responsibility do companies have for the addictive nature of their products? And how do we protect young people from the potential harms of excessive social media use?
These are tough questions, and I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. But it's clear that we need to be thinking carefully about these issues.
I agree. The impact of technology on our lives is something we need to be constantly evaluating and reevaluating.
And finally, let's talk about something that could impact us all. A UN cybercrime treaty that's causing quite a stir.
A UN cybercrime treaty. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Tell me more.
It's been pushed by Russia and China, and it's raising concerns among human rights advocates and the tech industry.
Russia and China. That's not exactly reassuring.
Right. And the lack of transparency and human rights protections in this treaty is really alarming.
So what's in this treaty that's causing so much concern?
Well, for one thing, it requires governments to assist in investigations and share data for serious crimes. But the definition of serious crimes is pretty broad, and it could be used to target political dissidents or anyone critical of the government.
That's a slippery slope.
It is. And the treaty also requires internet service providers to retain even more data, which raises major privacy concerns.
More data retention. That's a nightmare for privacy advocates.
And there are provisions in the treaty that could hinder security research and make it harder for people to report vulnerabilities.
That's counterproductive. We need more security research, not less.
Right. So this treaty is definitely controversial, to say the least.
It sounds like it. It's a reminder that cybersecurity isn't just about protecting systems and data, it's also about protecting fundamental freedoms and human rights.
That's a really important point. Cybersecurity is about more than just technology. It's about the kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly. The stakes are high, and we need to be having these conversations.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from unpatched software and insider threats to cyber insurance and international treaties. It's a complex and ever-changing landscape, but understanding the threats and staying informed is the first step in protecting yourself and your business.
I couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power. The more you know about cybersecurity, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions and stay safe. You know, one thing that's really striking from all these stories is just how fast the cybersecurity landscape is changing.
Yeah, it's like trying to hit a moving target. Every week there's a new threat, a new vulnerability. It's tough to keep up.
It really is. That's why staying informed and proactive is so crucial. Because the truth is, every business, no matter how big or small, is a potential target.
I think a lot of people, especially those small business owners, they still have that "it won't happen to me" mentality. They think they're too small to be on the radar.
That's a dangerous assumption. Cybercriminals, they're opportunistic. They're constantly scanning for any weakness they can exploit. It's not personal. It's just business for them.
And for a small business, a cyber attack, that could be devastating. Lost revenue, data recovery costs, legal fees, not to mention the hit to your reputation.
Absolutely. It can put you out of business.
Right.
That's why a solid cybersecurity plan, it's not optional anymore. It's a necessity. And it all starts with really understanding the specific risks you face. What are your biggest cybersecurity worries?
For me, ransomware is definitely top of mind. It seems like that's the weapon of choice these days.
Yeah, ransomware is a huge problem. They encrypt your data and hold it hostage until you pay up, and it's getting more sophisticated all the time.
It's not just individual computers anymore. They're going after entire networks.
Exactly. They use techniques like lateral movement to spread through the network, encrypt as much as they can, and they're getting smarter about stealing data before they encrypt it. So even if you have backups, they still have leverage.
Double whammy. And the ransoms themselves are getting bigger and bigger. We're talking millions of dollars in some cases.
It's scary stuff. And it's not just the ransom itself. There's the downtime, the cost of recovering your data, potential legal and regulatory fines. It all adds up.
So what can businesses do to protect themselves from this ransomware nightmare?
Well, a strong backup and recovery plan is your first line of defense. Back up your data regularly and make sure those backups are stored securely, preferably offsite.
And test those backups. Make sure they're actually working. You don't want to find out they're corrupted when you really need them.
Couldn't agree more. Testing your backups is crucial. You also need a solid incident response plan. What's your playbook if you get hit with ransomware? Who do you contact? What steps do you take to contain the damage?
And don't forget about employee training. A lot of these ransomware attacks, they start with a phishing email.
Absolutely. Educate your employees about phishing, how to spot those malicious emails. Have clear policies about opening attachments or clicking on links from senders they don't know. It's all about layers of protection.
Make it as hard as possible for attackers to get in. And if they do get in, make sure the damage is limited.
Exactly. Another growing threat we're seeing is business email compromise, or BEC.
BEC. That's where someone pretends to be a high-level executive, like the CEO, and tricks someone in finance into wiring money to a fraudulent account.
Right. And these attacks are getting really clever. The attackers, they do their research, learn about the company, use social engineering to build trust.
And they often target smaller businesses because they might not have the same level of security as larger organizations.
They go after the low-hanging fruit. So what can businesses do to protect themselves from BEC attacks?
Multi-factor authentication for all financial transactions is a must. Even if an attacker gets an employee's login credentials, they can't transfer money without that second factor, like a code from their phone.
Great point. And make sure you're educating your employees about BEC scams. Encourage them to verify any unusual requests, especially those involving money transfers.
Pick up the phone, double-check with the person who supposedly sent the request.
Better safe than sorry. We've talked about ransomware and BEC, but there are so many other threats out there. What else should businesses be aware of?
Cloud security is becoming increasingly important, especially as more businesses move their data and applications to the cloud.
The cloud, yeah, it offers a lot of benefits, but it also presents new security challenges. You're trusting a third party to secure your data, so choosing a reputable cloud provider with strong security is absolutely critical.
And understanding your shared responsibility model. What are you responsible for securing, and what falls under the cloud provider's domain?
Exactly. And you need to be really careful about configuring your cloud environment. Misconfigurations are a major source of cloud breaches.
It sounds like having someone on your team who understands cloud security is essential.
Absolutely. If you don't have that expertise in-house, consider partnering with a cybersecurity firm that specializes in cloud security.
So we've talked about preventing attacks, but cybersecurity is also about detecting and responding to them.
Right. You need systems in place that are constantly monitoring your network, looking for anything suspicious, and alerting you if something seems off.
And a plan for what to do if a security incident does occur. Who's involved? What steps do you take to contain the damage? How do you communicate with customers and stakeholders?
The faster you can detect and respond, the less damage an attack can inflict. It's not just about having the right tools and technology, but also the right people and processes.
Cybersecurity is definitely a team effort. It involves everyone from the CEO all the way down to the intern.
And it's an ongoing process. It's not something you set and forget. You have to constantly evolve and adapt your security measures to keep pace with the changing threat landscape.
One thing that I find really fascinating is this increasing use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in cybersecurity.
AI is a game changer. On the defense side, it's being used to automate things like threat detection and analysis. AI-powered tools can analyze mountains of data looking for patterns and anomalies that might indicate an attack.
Like a digital security guard that never sleeps.
Exactly. AI can also help automate incident response, helping you contain and remediate threats much faster.
What about on the offensive side? How are attackers using AI?
Oh, they're using it too. They're developing more sophisticated phishing emails, creating malware that's harder to detect, even launching automated attacks.
So it's a digital arms race with AI on both sides.
Precisely. Both sides are trying to use AI to get an advantage. And this battle, it's only going to get more intense in the years to come.
So what does this mean for businesses?
It means cybersecurity is more complex and challenging than ever before. But it also means there are new opportunities to use AI to strengthen your defenses.
So businesses need to start thinking about how they can integrate AI into their cybersecurity strategy.
Absolutely. AI is not a silver bullet, but it's a powerful tool when used strategically.
For businesses who are feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this, where should they start?
Start with a security assessment. What are your most valuable assets? What are the biggest threats you're facing? What security controls do you already have in place?
Okay, and then what?
Develop a cybersecurity roadmap. What are your goals? How are you going to achieve them? What resources do you need?
And this plan needs to address both prevention and response, right? You have to be prepared for both scenarios.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that expertise in-house, it might be a good idea to partner with a cybersecurity firm like Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions. They can help with everything from risk assessments to incident response.
That's right. There are great resources out there for businesses of all sizes. You don't have to go it alone.
The key takeaway here is that cybersecurity is essential for every business, no matter how big or small. It's an ongoing process that requires vigilance and adaptation.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Cybersecurity, it's a journey, not a destination.
And it's a journey we're all on together. Speaking of journeys, it's interesting how these larger global trends, they kind of influence the cybersecurity landscape, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Geopolitical tensions, the rise of nation-state actors, the increasing sophistication of cybercrime, it's all connected.
Like a giant spider web. You tug on one thread and it affects everything else.
Oh.
One of those threads that's been really prominent lately is this whole concept of cyber sovereignty.
Cyber sovereignty, yeah. That's essentially the idea that countries have the right to control the internet within their own borders. They want to regulate content, protect critical infrastructure, and prevent foreign interference.
So, like digital borders.
In a way, yes. And it's becoming a major point of contention between countries, especially as the internet becomes more and more essential to our lives.
How does this impact businesses?
Well, businesses need to be aware of the different cybersecurity laws and regulations in the countries where they operate. What's legal in one country might be illegal in another.
Yet another layer of complexity to an already complex issue.
Exactly. It's something businesses need to be thinking about proactively as part of their overall cybersecurity strategy.
We've covered a lot of heavy stuff today. Before we wrap up part 2, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this, but there are things businesses can do to protect themselves.
Absolutely. One of the most important things is simply being aware of the risks. Once you understand the threats you face, you can start putting measures in place to mitigate them.
It's not about being perfect, it's about being better than you were yesterday.
Well said. Cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. Every step you take to improve your security posture is a step in the right direction.
What are some practical things businesses can do to get started?
Implementing multi-factor authentication for all your accounts is a simple but effective step. It makes it significantly harder for attackers to get access, even if they have your password.
And that's not just for businesses, right? Everyone should be using multi-factor authentication for their personal accounts too.
Absolutely. It's one of the best things you can do to protect yourself online.
What else?
Keeping your software up to date is crucial. Software updates often include security patches that fix known vulnerabilities. Install those updates as soon as they're available.
And don't forget about your mobile devices. Those operating systems and apps need updates too.
Right. And be careful about what apps you download. Stick to reputable app stores and read the reviews before installing anything.
Good advice. We talked about employee training earlier.
Employee training is so important. Educate your employees about phishing emails, malware, other cyber threats. Teach them how to spot suspicious activity and what to do if they think they've been compromised.
And it's not a one-time thing, is it? The training needs to be ongoing to keep up with the latest threats.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is always evolving. Your training program has to evolve with it.
So we've got multi-factor authentication, software updates, and employee training. What else should businesses be thinking about?
A strong password policy. Make sure your employees are using strong, unique passwords for all their accounts. A password manager can be really helpful for keeping track of everything securely.
And let's not forget about good old-fashioned physical security.
Right, physical security often gets overlooked, but it's just as important as cybersecurity. Make sure your computers and other devices are physically secured and that you have policies in place to prevent unauthorized access to your facilities.
So to sum it up, cybersecurity requires a holistic approach. You have to think about the people, the processes, and the technology.
Absolutely, and it's a continuous journey, one that requires constant vigilance and adaptation.
Well, that's a great point to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into cybersecurity. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore. So we've talked a lot about how the cybersecurity world is like always changing.
It really is like a constantly shifting puzzle.
You can feel overwhelming, right?
Absolutely. But the good news is you don't have to be perfect. It's about progress, not perfection.
It's about building that culture of security, making sure everyone's on board.
Exactly. Everyone needs to understand how important it is to protect that sensitive data, those systems.
And remember, if you don't have that expertise in-house, there's help available.
There are lots of great cybersecurity firms out there, like Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions, that can offer support, guidance, tailored to your specific needs.
It sounds like a great resource. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the latest headlines to practical tips for improving your security.
Knowledge is power. The more you know about cybersecurity, the better prepared you'll be to protect yourself and your business.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. Stay safe out there, everyone.